And I'm also going to start a second recording. And go along there. Okay, we're good to go. Good evening, everyone. And welcome to District 44 Rules Clinic. My name is Mark Teagle. I am the UIC for District 44. That means the district-wide umpire-in-chief for the 10 leagues that are part of District 44. And Jim Malaris is a District 44 district ump or a red shirt. He comes based originally in Campbell, but works all over the district, and will be providing a lot of content tonight. So let me show you what we looked like a couple of years ago. If we go to the next slide, show who our instructors are. And there we are in action with our red shirts on out at ballparks. And we're going to be talking tonight about one of the pillars of umpiring. Mechanics, that's something that we teach at mechanics clinics. Those are what you do on the field, how to line up as the plate umpire, how to line up as the base umpire, how to move, get in position for making calls. That's mechanics. Also important is game management, how you work with the participants, how you handle the managers, the players, do the things that need to happen. But one of the most important things is your rules knowledge. Baseball's a simple game. You hit the ball, you run, you try to, if you're on defense, put the guy out. But it's a complex game because of the way the rules are. And so we're going to take about 3 hours to go through that. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a better understanding of the rules. No substitute for just spending time in that rule book. And there is a free app that's available both for Apple iOS and for Google devices. And you can find those for free, and it automatically updates every year. Dive into that. It's searchable, and you can get a good basis of that. Also encourage you just to talk to other people and get an idea of what it is that we're doing with the rules. All right, let's go on. So our goals tonight, educate new umpires, to refresh all you experienced umpires. And also there are managers, coaches, and parents on this call tonight. And we want to have knowledgeable people. Managers might decide to come to the right side of things and become an umpire. Former managers make great umpires often. Coaches, maybe when your kids age out, you're wanting to come over and an umpire. Parents, maybe get involved in scorekeeping, get involved in umpiring. And also just to know what's going on out there on the field, to be able to have a conversation about a rules decision and know why the umpire made the call that he or she did. So those are our goals for tonight. And just for our Zoom protocols, keep your camera off, your microphone off. If you have a question, put it into the chat. We will try to moderate that chat and bring it into the discussion. We also have some scenarios where you will get to vote. We'll ask a question. It'll be A, B, sometimes A, B, C, 1 or 2 questions, even have 4 choices. And so we'll put that in. That's just to see if you're really listening, give you a chance to be even more of a participant. At the very end of tonight, we'll, if we have time, we'll open it up and take questions from the floor. And stay on if there are other people that want to ask more questions. We'll do the same thing tomorrow night. All right. And Jim, I'm not seeing where the slide number is. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, bottom right.
Yeah, we're still good. Okay, I got to go up through a couple more slides. So here's the table of contents from the rule book, or each one of these is now a tab in the app that we have for our rules app. The ones that pertain to umpires the most: Regulation 6 for pitchers, Regulation 14 field decorum. You have to be able to read Roman numerals for the regulations, and then the 9 rules that are in the rule book, and objectives, definitions, preliminaries, starting, ending, putting the ball in play, live ball, the batter, the runner, the pitcher, and the best rule of all, number 9, the umpire. So we're going to talk about a lot of those things here tonight. We're not going to necessarily go through them in order. We're going to hit them kind of in a thematic progression, but you can search for them. You can find them using this table of contents. All right. So a couple things from Rule 9 for the umpires. All judgment calls are final. So balls, strike, fair, foul, safe, out. Those are calls that the umpire makes in their judgment. By rule, we're not allowed to engage in a discussion of those. They're going to be final. Now, you can come to an umpire if you feel there's been an illegal interpretation of a rule, if there's a conflict with a rule in the decision that was made, and that may be protested. And we'll talk about the protest process. You can ask an umpire to get help. That umpire has the choice of whether or not to get help from their partner or partners. But one umpire cannot reverse another umpire. That umpire, it's their call. They live with it. They may decide to get help from their partner, and they might change their call based on that new information, but it's still their call. All right. And
so the one thing that we haven't spoken about in years past is the idea of sportsmanship, and that umpires are the custodians, umpires and game coordinators are the custodians of sportsmanship on the field. And so let's watch a dramatic video here and we'll talk about it.
2-2. On the ground, bouncing ball up the middle into center field of Aset. Wheel to the plate. The throw from Contreras. Perfect. Soto celebrates right in the face of Wheel.
Yeah. So luckily, I don't think, Mark, you're probably more familiar with this than I. We don't have many ejections in our league, in our district, in our leagues or our district, which is great. That means people are bringing the spirit of Little League to the field with them, be it the players, the umpires, the coaches, the spectators. But we have to be on the lookout for it. And anybody who's been paying attention to media in recent years is aware that it's been one of the things that's been affecting the number of officials across all different sports. And so let's be on it when it needs to be addressed. It doesn't necessarily mean that we always have to eject people, but sometimes a good talking to will go a long way to keeping the game under control. So
I agree. And sometimes it's, you can tell a player or a coach, that's enough. And just as a way to tell them, hey, you're right at that line, do not cross that line. In this situation, it's not clear. It looked like he might have even just been hitting or just waving his fist in the face of that player. And this was in Williamsport. It was a game with Venezuela and Curacao, and just a lot of emotions going on there. All right, significant rule updates for 2024. Very short. there aren't really, for regular season, there aren't any significant rule changes this year. After last year, they decided to give us a year off. So let's move on. We did have some significant rule updates from 2024 or 2023, excuse me. And there are play calling armbands. You've probably seen these. These are like the little Velcro window that you can wear on your arm, and the manager calls out a number. Players check their number and they know what their defensive play is or what the pitch is going to be. For pitchers, that can be worn on the glove arm. It needs to be a solid color, not white, gray, or optic yellow. But those armbands are legal for Little League play. Managers and coaches are permitted to warm up a pitcher at home plate in the bullpen or elsewhere. That's only in the regular season, but remind the coaches get that warm up going so that we can move on and we're not waiting around for a catcher to get ready. But as soon as that catcher's ready, let's get that game going and keep it moving. We did add last year a new category of the run rule. It's always been 10 runs after 4 or 3.5 in a 6-inning game. A few years ago, the 15-run rule was added for the 3 innings of a game, 2.5 innings if the home team is ahead. And now in the 5th inning, if there's an 8-run lead, the game can be mercied. So that's just one thing. That is a local choice. So league by league, they may not do that. But as a general rule, we do that because if you're in a one-sided game, it's really not that fun for anyone. All right, let me turn it over to and a verbal intentional walk, sorry. All divisions now, a player may only be verbally intentionally walked one time during a game. So that needs to be taken into account by the scorekeeper. They can still throw 4 balls outside the strike zone to a batter another time, but they can only put him on with an automatic walk one time in a game.
Yeah, that's it on the rule changes. So let's get back into stuff that if you've been with us before in years past, some of this hasn't changed in a while. Bats, there haven't been any significant rule changes in bats for a while. So any non-wood bat or laminated bat needs to bear the USA baseball logo. That means it meets the USA bat standard. It can't be bigger than 2 5/8 inches. Sometimes that's known as a big barrel bat. I don't think I've ever seen a bat that's has a diameter more than 2 5/8 inches, but that is the diameter limitation. The length of the bat in majors and below is 33 inches. In intermediate and juniors, 34 inches is the length limit. In years past, I'm not sure when this was changed. I want to say it's about 5 years ago. BPF 1.15 bats were allowed. They have been prohibited for about 5 years now. That's when Little League Baseball adopted the USA bat standard. Now, solid one-piece wood barrel bats, they're fine. They don't need to have that USA baseball logo. But if it's a hybrid wood bat that has a composite handle and a wood barrel, that needs to have a USA baseball logo. In Little League, pine tar is not allowed on bats. And so if you've got players that are playing travel, or if you've got some older kids or maybe playing some high school baseball and then the juniors and seniors, oftentimes pine tar is on those bats that they use in those tournaments or in their high school ball, and they can't use that bat in Little League. So make sure that you're checking your bats if you're a coach to make sure that there's no pine tar on them.
And pine tar should not be anywhere else, should not be on their helmet, should not be on their uniform. So that's a reason to like knock a helmet out of a game if it's covered with pine tar.
Yeah, good point. Helmets. So helmets can't be cracked. They can't be painted. As Mark said, they can't have pine tar. They can't be mirror-like. A change that came in, I believe it was last year, the year before, quarter-size decals, so small decals are okay as long as they don't cover more than 25% of the helmet. So a couple of examples of helmets that wouldn't be legal. This is a painted helmet on the left. Looks nice, but not legal in Little League. And that totally mirrored helmet, not legal in Little League. The padding, it needs to be properly attached. It can't be missing, it can't be damaged, and there cannot be tape that's holding the padding on. And oftentimes when I do equipment inspections, I'll find, helmets that may have tape through the ear hole holding the padding on. That's not a legal helmet. It can't be used in a game. And jaw guards, they're okay if the helmet and the C flap, that's what the jaw guard is sometimes referred to as, or they come from the same manufacturer. And if they're different, you need a letter from the helmet manufacturer that authorizes it. Now, catcher's helmets. Once again, no cracks, no decals on the catcher's helmet, and no paint. Padding, same things as the batting helmet. It's got to be properly attached. It can't be missing, and it can't be damaged, and can't be held on by tape. The cage, the mask, it can't be cracked or bent. And the screws need to be securely attached. And this is where I find most of the issues with catcher's helmets is the screws are missing or they're loose. And so make sure that those are all attached and that they're all tight. In Little League, a dangling type throat guard is required at all levels of play. This is a good example where that dangling throat guard is nice and tight underneath the bottom of the helmet. Oftentimes those dangling throat guards are held on by a piece of twine, and there's 5 inches of twine between the bottom of the helmet and the top of the throat guard. That's too much space, and so a baseball could easily get through that. So it should be tied up to the helmet. And in Little League, skull caps are not permitted. They look great on some Major League Baseball players, but they're not allowed in Little League. We have to have the hockey style face mask in Little League for all catchers. Now, just further on the dangling throat guards, they're required obviously during games, but also if a player is warming up a pitcher. So, the catcher may come out with his catcher's helmet, but if somebody else is warming up the pitcher, they have to have a legal catcher's helmet on with the dangling throat guard. They can't come out with their batting helmet and warm up the pitcher. Also, any form of infield or outfield practice that's happening, the catcher needs to be wearing their legal helmet with the dangling throat guard. When I walk up to a field, oftentimes when I'm umpiring, that's the first thing I look for is the team that's warming up on the field is to make sure that catcher has the legal helmet on with the dangling throat guard. And sadly, too often they're not wearing their helmet, and I get that corrected as quickly as possible. So if you're an umpire and you're walking to the field and you see that the catcher doesn't have the legal helmet on, you stop them doing what they're doing and make sure that catcher addresses the issue. All right, our first vote of the night. Catcher's helmets. We got 4 options here, A, B, C, and D. Which one is legal in Little League? All right, see a lot of votes pouring in here. Very good. Let's go ahead and wrap that up, Mark.
All right. And here are the results.
Nice.
B,
Everybody nailed it. Yeah. So A and C are not legal. A doesn't have a dangling throat guard or throat protector, and C is a skull cap. Those are not legal in Little League. And D is legal, but as I mentioned about the dangler, it shouldn't dangle so much as in this picture here. B is a great example of what we're looking for in Little League. That's 100% legal. Nice job, everybody. All right, we're going to move on to pitchers and pitching. All right, pitcher's attire. The shirt sleeves, including compression sleeves, they need to be a solid color and they can't be white or gray. That means that they also cannot be camo. You know, a lot of times kids come in with these multicolored undershirt sleeves and compression sleeves that are camo. They cannot be that. They can have no items on the hands, wrists, or arms. So, you know, sweatbands, tape, rubber bracelets. The thing that they can have is the play calling card. That can be on the glove hand for the pitcher. Yep. And once again, that cannot be a white or gray, that play calling card. And sleeve lengths need to be approximately the same length. That means if the pitcher comes out with a compression sleeve only on one arm, they have to either take it off or get another second compression sleeve of the same color for their other arm. Now, the pitcher's glove, it cannot be exclusive of the piping white or gray, or in the judgment of the umpire, distracting in any manner. There are a lot of multicolored gloves on the market nowadays. You name the color, I've seen it on the field. Some are quite bold, and that sometimes borders on being distracting. Batting gloves worn underneath the fielding glove can't be white or gray or optic yellow either.
and just a note on that, it's in the judgment of the umpire what is distracting. So sometimes coaches will come out and try to, throw that pitcher off by saying, I don't like his glove. Well, if it's not distracting to you, it's not distracting.
Yeah. So pitcher's pitch. So what is a pitch? It's a ball delivered to the batter by the pitcher. And we also have pitch count limits in Little League. And so knowing how to count pitches is really important. So anytime a ball is delivered to a batter by the pitcher, that is going to be added to the pitch count. So ball thrown for a ball thrown for a strike, a foul ball, a foul tip. Those are all added to the pitch count. Additional times when pitches are added to the pitcher's pitch count is an illegal pitch. So the ball may not actually be delivered, but the umpire has called an illegal pitch or an intentional walk. Anytime that somebody's intentionally walked verbally, we're going to add the number of balls that are required to get to a 4-ball count. So if it's a 2-2 count on 4 pitches thrown, and then the coach decides he wants to walk that batter, we're going to add 2 more pitches to the pitch count to bring the total tally up to 4 balls for that at bat. The umpire should also turn to the scorekeeper and make sure they know that we're adding pitches to that pitcher's pitch count for things like illegal pitches and the verbal intentional walks. Now, catcher's moving to pitcher. A player may not play the position of catcher for 4 innings or more and be eligible to pitch in the same day. And it's not a full four innings. It is 1 pitch in the 4th inning that constitutes the fourth inning and makes that catcher ineligible to pitch for that game. Now, they can play the position of catcher for 3 innings or less. Once again, the first pitch in the third inning would be the third inning. And they can move to the pitcher, position pitcher, and deliver 21 pitches or more in the same day, and then return to the catcher position in the same day. So starting as catcher, pitching for 3 innings or less, they move to the pitcher to deliver 21 pitches or more in the same day. And the or more is with the exception. That's when they start the pitch count is under 20 while facing a batter. Then they can complete that at bat and still be eligible to return to catcher in that same day.
So the point here is that when you have this happening with a catcher moving to pitcher or pitcher moving to catcher, it's important to check with the scorekeeper, check with the pitch counter, and make sure they are eligible to make that change.
Now, if a pitcher reaches 40 pitches, they may not play the position of catcher unless covered by essentially the same exception. That's where they reach 40 pitches while facing a batter. That means that they've started that batter under 40 pitches. So the pitcher can continue to pitch and complete that at bat or until the final or the out is made. And then they can go to play catcher after that. So the third out of the inning is fine as well. Okay, visits on defense. So this is when the coach wants to go and talk to actually any player of his team on defense. Usually it is the pitcher. 99% of the time, it's going to be a mound visit. And in majors, they're allowed in an inning, they can have 1 visit in an inning and 2 visits over the course of the game before that, or the pitcher's removed on the second visit in an inning. A pitcher is allowed 2 visits in majors across the course of a game. They're removed on the third time the coach comes out. In minors, you just add 1 to all of those counts as in the majors. If there is a injury on defense and the coach goes out to talk to the players, they're not charged a timeout for the injury. But the umpire has an important job to do, which is to go out there and monitor the conversation and to make sure that it's only about the status and health of the player. There can't be strategy talk or what to do with the upcoming batter. That can't happen. So the umpire shouldn't just stay, at home or over in the A position. They need to go and monitor what's happening with the player and the conversation happening between the coach and the player. Some other limitations on the pitchers in majors and below. A pitcher can only once they're removed from the mound, they can't return as a pitcher. And the manager must remove the pitcher when they've reached their pitch limit per day. Connor M., you're doing something with, I think, your cursor, which at least on my screen is showing a bunch of red lines. I'm not sure if anybody else has seen that, but if you could hold off on doing that, that'd be great.
I think we're all seeing it. So yeah, if you could erase your red lines, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. So once they've hit their pitch limit, they have to be removed. There is the exception. Once again, if they're below their pitch limit when they while facing a batter, the start of that at bat, then they can complete that that at bat until the batter reaches base or is retired, or the third out is made in the inning, or the pitcher is removed before the batter completes their at bat. Intermediate and below, a pitcher may not pitch in more than one game in a day. I don't think we have many doubleheaders in District 44. But that's it with the pitcher limitations. Mark, I'm going to jump out and back in and see if that gets rid of the red lines. Okay.
Thank you. And just a reminder, as we're going along, you want to keep yourself muted, keep yourself off camera until the very end. But we do have the chat that we're monitoring. So if you have a question as we go along, feel free to put something into the chat, or if you just have a comment, if you want to appreciate all the work that Jim has put into all these slides, definitely do that. But we're going to move on to batting. And so this is where it all gets exciting. All right, so we talk about minimum play or mandatory play. And in order to satisfy the at-bat requirement for mandatory play, you have to enter the batter's box with a fresh count. So if there is, let's say, a batting out of order situation, and the batter comes in and he's already got 2 strikes on him, that at-bat alone doesn't satisfy the requirement of mandatory play to have a complete at-bat at least once in the game. And this is during the regular season, this is also an account that you need to complete the full at-bat to get credit for that. So you need to, if you get on base, you need to either be put out or have the third out come along or score before you can be substituted or have a special pinch runner. Note that in a continuous batting order game, the only runners that can take your place are the pitcher or the catcher when there are 2 outs. So that exception is happening. So a lot of our games won't have the ability to use a special pinch runner. We'll talk about that as we go along. So just know that that's happening. That's one change this year for postseason, that requirement will not be in place for postseason, but for regular season, it still is. Your first at bat, you need to get around and change and complete all of that. So if you're doing a bat 9 game, this is a non-continuous batting order game where there are just 9 people in the batting order, the 9 people that are playing defense at that time, then you have to follow these rules for doing substitutions. The substitute for a starter needs to complete those 6 defensive outs and an at-bat before the starter can be re-entered. All right, and so these those restrictions are there because of that need to fulfill the mandatory play requirement. For defense, under continuous batting order, that's where everybody present at the game is in the batting order. Everybody needs to play 6 defensive outs during the game. Those defensive outs don't need to be consecutive. It can be 3 one inning, 3 another inning. Could even be, 1 out in each of the 6 innings, although that would be kind of ridiculous and hard to do. But
Am I plugged in? Because it's going down.
All right, please mute if you're on. Thank you. All right, and some more notes about the continuous batting order. It is required in minors. It's optional at all other levels. All players are considered starters because they are in the batting lineup. Even if they're not playing defense, they're considered to be in the starting roster because of the continuous batting order. And as I said earlier, you still have that play requirement of 6 defensive outs, and it's up to the manager. It's really the honor system. We're not tracking defensive outs for players. But if parents are noticing that little Johnny is only playing 3 outs in a game, they should be contacting the division director, contacting the board, and telling those folks that, hey, this is not right. My kid needs to be playing. Now, if a player is injured, becomes ill, or they have to leave early, you just skip over their time at bat. There's no penalty. We don't charge an out for that. If they come back, they just get inserted back into their original spot in the batting order, and we play on. If somebody arrives late to the game, they just get added to the end of the batting order, no matter where you are in the batting order at that time. It's just when they show up. If there's already 12 people in that order, the new person late arriving gets added as number 13, and they will bat in their turn. If somebody gets injured while running the bases or an at-bat and they are on base, then the player who made the last out just gets to run in their place and complete that trip around the bases or until the third out is made. We also, as I mentioned earlier, have a courtesy runner for the pitcher and or the catcher with 2 outs. So it has to be the pitcher or catcher of record, the person who previously, when you were on defense, was that pitcher. It can't be a projected person. I'm going to pitch this person next inning, so I'm going to run for them. No, it has to be the person who was the pitcher when the previous inning ended. But they can run for that person. It's a good thing to do because, especially for the catcher, they can be getting the gear on. When you've got 2 outs, the pitcher can get a little bit of a breather, so he or she is ready to go back out there. And as I said, no special pinch runner in a game that has continuous batting order. The only thing available is this courtesy runner for the pitcher or the catcher. Offensive timeouts, we talked about visits on defense to the pitcher or to any defensive player. Offense can have 1 offensive timeout per half inning. And if they're, base coach is talking to the batter while they're on their way out or even in between pitches, you can say, Coach, is this your offensive timeout? And usually they'll say, oh, no, and they'll get that player going. But you can threaten that, say, hey, Coach, I'm going to charge you your offensive timeout if we don't get back in the box and if we're not ready to go. But also, anytime a timeout is granted to the other team, either the offense or the defense, the opposing coach can visit their player, even the pitcher, and not be charged with an official visit or an offensive timeout, provided that that visit ends when the other team's visit ends. If the offensive coach wants to talk to their player longer than the visit to the pitcher from the other team, then you would have a charged offensive timeout in that situation, or vice versa, a charged defensive conference. If the manager, you kind of give them, hey, coach, we're moving on here, or do you want to take your visit here? But as an umpire, you should be tracking that. And so the important thing here, 1 offensive timeout per half inning. We need to keep that game moving. All right. We are talking about legal position. And this is the size of that batter's box. And it's going to be scribed out that way. We want to see at the beginning of the at bat, or as the batter is getting into position, both of his feet need to be completely within the confines of the batter's box, including the line. So their foot can be up on against the line, on the line, but not over the line when they initially set up. If they are crowding the plate and they are over that inside line, or if they're way up front or way in back or way off the plate, you need to call time, put their feet right. And that's when they're first setting up. And that doesn't determine where they can be when they hit the ball. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But as the umpire, you can require them to start with both their feet in the box, including the lines.
Mark, I'll just add, oftentimes our games start with a line and the line is gone by the second inning. That doesn't mean that you have to, that you're allowed to stop monitoring that space between the batter and the plate. You have to make sure that they're still roughly 4 inches away, and push them back, stop the game and push them back if you need to.
Exactly. And in majors and below, that's a 4-inch difference between the outside of the batter's box and the edge of the plate. When we get to intermediate and juniors, that goes to 6 inches. So here we have, and you can see by who's playing in these games, these are World Series games. And we have a player who is definitely illegal, crowding the plate, and the umpire should have moved him back, even though you can see the inside line is gone, as Jim said. But it's the umpire's job to make this fair, because if that batter's taken away that inside part of the plate from the pitcher, they're tipping the balance of fair play. So this is just an example of needing to adjust where that player is. And if he doesn't comply, I mean, he needs to comply. I'd say don't do that.
By the way, the one thing is you notice where the umpires positioned himself. He's not in the slot anymore. He's got his head over the home plate, and now he's put himself in harm's way as well. So
yeah, the batter has taken away the inside corner from the umpire as well as the pitcher. All right. So the rule says the batter is out if he or she hits the pitch fair or foul with one or both feet on the ground entirely outside the batter's box. But if a part of that foot is on the line touching the batter's box, they're still legal. So it is possible to have your toe on the plate, but still have your heel back in the batter's box. Now, this guy is out of the box and he is hitting the ball, and he is going to be immediately out. Whether he hits it fair or foul, that is an out. It's out of the box, batter's out. So, and just to another note on that, as I said, if, and they can be out of the box, behind it, the backside, the front side, anywhere where their foot is down and they make contact with the ball. But if any part of that foot is still in that box, they're legal. And also, as a plate umpire, you've got a lot of other things to do than worry about where their feet are. But if somebody is like doing a drag bunt and they are making contact, their foot's in the air and it hasn't come down outside the box, they're still legal. It's only when the foot is on the ground completely outside the box and they make contact fair or foul that you have an out. And I've called
where I most often enforce this is when players square completely to bunt and they're not very versed at it and they stepped completely out of the box and on the home plate. And that's where I see it most often.
Yeah, somebody will square and their foot away from the pitcher ends up out over the plate. All right. Still me, here we go. The bunt. So the rule book definition, and this is in rule number 2. Remember, rule 2 is all the definitions. So if you want to know what a word means, and it has a very specific meaning, you'll find it in rule 2. So a bunt is a ball that is not swung at, but intentionally met, tapped slowly. So, and the mere holding of the bat in the strike zone is not an attempted bunt. You do not have to pull back in baseball. In softball, Little League, or otherwise, just an attempted bunt, and you don't pull the bat back, it's called a strike. But in baseball, if the ball is outside the strike zone, the mere presence of the bat there does not make it a strike. It has to be in the strike zone, or the batter has to offer at the pitch. So the batter moves that bat in the direction of the pitch. And this bunt definition is very important for these last two bullets. If a player bunts foul with 2 strikes, it is not a do-over like a foul ball with 2 strikes would be otherwise. A bunt foul is strike 3. It's out. It's also a dead ball. No one could advance. The ball does not have to be caught by the catcher. A foul bunt with 2 strikes is an out. Also, if a player is bunting and it pops up, that cannot be an infield fly. Infield fly cannot be a bunt. It cannot be a line drive. So those are important distinctions that you need to be aware of when it comes to bunting. All right. We are going to talk about balls and strikes. So a ball, a pitch that does not enter the strike zone in flight, so it can bounce. And if it bounces and goes through the strike zone, this still can't be a strike. It is a ball once it bounces there. If it's not swung at. Now, a ball can bounce and hit the batter, and that's still considered a hit by pitch. A ball that bounces can still be hit by the batter, and it could be a fair or foul ball that is perfectly legal. And if the ball bounces in front of the plate, it was not caught in flight by the catcher. And so if that is strike 3, it would be considered a third strike not caught, even if the catcher catches it. Once it hits the ground, it's no longer in flight. And we have a situation, majors and above, where a first base is not occupied with less than 2 outs. The batter can become the batter runner and try for first base. So, but pretty easy to have a ball. It's not a strike. And that's the definition. All right, so an intentional walk, you can do this verbally. And the way it's usually done is the manager will hold up 4 fingers and just say, we're going to walk this guy, and they'll say it, but they don't even have to, it must be made by the manager after requesting time. So they, should call time, but basically we're just going to put that guy on, and you're going to add those 4 pitches to the pitch count. And this can only happen once per game. This is a rule that Giant fans wish had been in place when Barry Bonds was playing. Because that can only happen in once in a game. And those, the really hotshot guy hits a home run early in the tournament and then gets intentionally walked every time. After that, makes it really hard for people to watch. So you can still get a quote unquote intentional walk by throwing 4 pitches outside the strike zone. But these are little leaguers, and so anything can happen when they try to throw a ball outside the strike zone. Guy could swing at it and hit it, or it can be a wild pitch or a pass ball. And so, and that intentional walk can happen in any division. And just be aware of it. Make a note that the hot hitters been intentionally walked verbally, and that cannot happen again. All right, definition of a strike, a little more complicated, but as we say at the mechanics clinics, we like strikes. Strikes are good. Strikes lead to outs. Outs lead to the game being decided and everybody having fun, and the umpire gets their hot dog and their Coke at the end of it. So it needs to be a legal pitch. It can be either struck at and missed, or if not swung at, has to pass through the strike zone in flight. So that covers that whole bouncing through thing we talked about. So in flight means in the air. And so you have that strike zone from top of the knees to just below the armpits. By definition, the width of the plate, any part of the ball through any part of the strike zone. A ball that is batted foul for strike 1 and strike 2 can be a strike. If it's bunted foul, can be strike 1, strike 2, or strike 3. If the batter swings or offers at the pitch and gets touched by the ball, that also is a strike, but it's also a dead ball. And so that strike does not have to be caught if it's strike 3. It also means that no runners can advance on that, but it can still be called a strike. Also, if the batter gets their body in the strike zone and the pitch hits them in flight in the strike zone, that is also a dead ball strike. And then the last thing here is a foul tip. So a ball that goes sharp and direct from the batter's bat to the hand or glove of the catcher and is caught. That is a foul tip. The ball is live. Runners can run at their own risk. And umpires just signal that silently. And we talked about that in the mechanics clinic. You don't say foul tip because it really isn't a foul. It's more like a ball that was swung at and missed than anything else. But what you're doing is you're letting people know, yes, I saw it hit the bat, but it went sharp and direct to the catcher's hand or glove. And so the ball is live, and that is a strike. So here is a 3-dimensional representation of the strike zone. It's big. So wonder more pitchers can't hit it. But you can see this ball that comes in pretty low, but goes through the bottom of the strike zone, even though it's going to maybe even be right at the catcher's feet. That's a strike. Any part of the ball through any part of the strike zone. And remember, that is a pentagon-shaped 3-dimensional object there. So, and it's where the plate is, not where the batter is, that the strike zone is. All right.
The one thing about this box kind of illustrates the Little League strike zone, which is different than Major League Baseball and college and high school. It's the armpits to the knees in Little League. And so in Major League Baseball, they better not be calling strikes at the top of that strike zone. But in Little League, we like strikes. We're going to grab all those that we can get.
Yeah. And be thinking about, is this a hittable pitch? And, umpires calling strikes, well, you better swing. So, be an umpire who forces people to swing the bat within reason, but don't be a walkathon, because that's really not baseball.
All right. Well, let's take a look at some video as some of these nuances of what the strike is. The one thing about the strike zone is between the armpits and the top of the knees when a batter assumes a natural stance, and that's what they would be in a kind of a natural batting position. Let's watch this guy.
Popped into the first baseman, and now he is sitting down, and that's a strike regardless of your stance.
Yeah, he was working that hard to try to get a ball call or make it hard to find a strike zone for that pitcher, but the umpire did the right thing. He assessed what that batter's strike zone would be in a natural stance and called the strike zone, which would have been, that pitch was delivered right above where his belt was. So good call by the umpire. It's also a strike when the pitch touches the batter. If the batter strikes, or sometimes you hear the term offers at the pitch. Let's watch this one.
Only 8 Ks for this team, so I think he did, didn't he? And even if it does hit him, if he offers that, it doesn't matter.
So right there, first, he's lucky he didn't make contact with that ball at around where his hand is. We would have broken a couple of fingers, but he's pushing that bat in the direction of the ball, and then the ball clips him on the arm. To me, that looked like he's offering at the pitch, and that would have been a strike. So,
and this is also one that if the plate umpire misses the subtlety of that motion, the defense would do well to ask for help, and he could go to his base umpire, who would be watching for that, and say, yeah, that would be Jim, did he go? Yes, he went with a hammer.
yeah. Remember, the umpire crew is the third team on the field. We work together to help each other out. Batters must make an attempt to avoid being touched by a pitch.
30 games. Well, outside of him, he didn't try to get out of the way. Get out. They're going to keep him right there. Let's watch him move his leg right into it. And, yep, I want to get hit with it. It's a good call by the umpire. Percent of the runners that get sacrificed on this team end up scoring, and oh no. Listen to the home plate umpire.
Watch the camera, losing the baseball. That's the best. Look at it. That's perfect. Great call by Scott Klein.
You get back here.
No, no.
So if you're in a good slot position, you're going to see that. It's going to be right in front of you as the batter moves in the direction of the ball. They take away some of your field of view. Hopefully you'll be able to pick that up if you're umpiring. If you see a player do that, by the way, and they don't get hit with the ball, talk to them. Tell them, hey, listen, you're not going to go anywhere. That's just going to be called a ball, and you're going to earn that ball call the hard way if you do that again. So just because they get hit with a baseball doesn't mean they automatically get first base in these situations where they've moved towards the ball. By the way, I'll go back to that. It says the batter must make an attempt to avoid being touched by the pitch. To me, these kids aren't, they can't tell a breaking ball from a fast ball. And so if they're just standing there and they're kind of frozen by this breaking pitch that's coming in and they get hit, then give them first base. Don't worry about them not moving and making an attempt at avoiding getting hit by the pitch.
But as you deal with older players, their ability to do that changes.
Yes. If the ball's in the strike zone when it touches the batter, it should be called a strike. And look at I circled it down here, the situation. This is bottom of the 8th. This is a Little League World Series game, Venezuela against Japan. The home team is down by a run. They got bases loaded. Venezuela, if they get another strike here, then it's going to be 2 outs, and they're one out away from continuing on. So situation is pretty dramatic here.
Is it a foul? Oh, that's what the game is tied on that hit batter.
Is that a strike though? Is that in the inner part of his hands are over the strike zone? So my right here, watch this. Is that a strike? Yeah, well, it's absolutely over the plate. So that's
Yeah. So that was a strike. It was in the strike zone. It hit his hand. It did not hit the bat. That should have been called a strike. By the way, it wasn't called a strike. He was awarded first base, and Japan went on to win the game, the next batter. Uncaught third strike. Uncaught third strike, and this is in majors and above, doesn't apply in minors. The batter becomes a runner on an uncaught third strike. And once again, as Mark mentioned earlier, if it's a pitch that's swung on and bounces in the dirt, that also qualifies. First base has to be unoccupied, or first base can be occupied with 2 outs. The batter may try to get to first base anytime before entering the dugout or any other dead ball area. Once they've entered the dugout, then that's it. The play is essentially done, but that's an uncaught third strike.
And sometimes you'll hear this referred to as a dropped third strike, but we use the careful wording of uncaught third strike to allow for both one that's dropped and one that bounces.
All right, so we got runner on second, 1 out. So one thing that umpires want to get into a mode of doing is kind of your pre-pitch preparation, knowing where your runners are at, how many outs are there, is there a runner on third base? Because in the situation of an uncaught third strike, if they throw the ball down to first base, well, that runner from third base may come down and try to score. So just be aware of those situations.
It's a swing and a miss. He will be able to go down to third, and there's no advancement.
Yeah, that was a pretty standard uncaught third strike situation. Runner on second, did not try to advance. the batter runner could try to get to first base. He did make that attempt, and they had to throw the ball down to first base and tag the base. They could also have just touched the batter with the ball, and that would have completed the out. All right, so we got another vote coming up here. All right, we got runners on first and third, and no outs. That's our situation. So get ready to watch this. And you're umpires tonight. So we're going to play these videos once, formulate your judgment in your mind of what you got, and then render your judgment.
In the dirt, Notmeyer swings.
All right. So our choices. A, B, and C. Batter's out automatically because first base is occupied. It's a live ball, and R1 and R3 may advance. Batter's out automatically because first base is occupied. It's a dead ball, and R1 and R3 may not advance. The batter may attempt to reach first base safely because of the drop third strike. So, what's our vote?
All right, so jump on that poll if you can. We'll let you know what the results are as soon as a few more people have voted.
This is all anonymous also, so don't worry about whether
Yeah.
there's not a scorecard that's being kept on everybody here. All right, let's go ahead and see what we got here. All right, so a lot of people like A. Batter is out automatically because first base is occupied, live ball, and R1 and R3 may advance. That is actually the right answer. Because first base was occupied with less than 2 outs, the batter's out automatically. And R1 and R2, it's a live ball situation, R1 and R3, that is. It's a live ball situation, they may try to advance. So it's not a dead ball situation, which would not allow them to advance. So, okay.
And as an umpire, if you have, a drop or an uncaught third strike with less than 2 outs and first base is occupied, you can say batter's out, or he's still out, just to tell people. But if they, there's no penalty for them kind of running, and actually the defense should be throwing to that lead runner rather than the batter runner.
So Oliver asked in the chat, can we replay that? We're not going to replay it. Just start to think of yourself as an umpire, and you're just going to see it once, try to replay it in your mind, and then render your best judgment possible. So we're going to try to avoid doing replays on the videos tonight.
But you can find the recording of this and wind through and try to find it again, or just a lot of these film clips are from YouTube. And so, you can maybe try to find that specific one.
All right, so a foul tip. We've talked about this a little bit. It's a ball that is sharp and direct, batted ball, sharp and direct, that goes to the catcher's hand or mitt. It doesn't necessarily need to go to his glove hand. Hopefully it goes to his glove hand, but it can go to his throwing hand. And it's legally caught by the catcher. And it's not a rebound unless first hitting the catcher's glove or rebound. That means it rebounds up into the air and they catch it. It can't hit the glove, go off of the umpire, and then be caught. Once it strikes, the umpire or the batter, then that's not a foul tip anymore.
Right, or
It's a
even
live-
if it hits off, the first hit is off of the catcher's body or face mask or anything like that. It has to be the hand or glove first.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. It's a live ball situation, so runners may advance, and as Mark mentioned before, treat it as a swinging strike. And if it's the third strike, the batter is out. And the picture on the page here shows the mechanic, which is the swipe up and to the right, and then you just throw the strike sign. So that's a foul tip. At our mechanics clinic, we talked about using our ears in determining whether or not the ball got to first base first when we were working on the A position, or whether or not the bag was tagged first. There's another situation where you're going to use your ears, not just your eyes. Foul tips you're going to hear maybe more than you're going to see.
One strike. You know, out at the plate in the 8th inning. He fouls it into the glove. He loved. Fastball's flying.
Yeah, so there's two sounds. There's a sharper sound of the ball off of the bat, and then a little bit of a duller sound of the pop of the glove. So, but they'll come very fast. All right, Mark, I think. Okay, here we go.
No, I think it says
I'm
still you.
still
So
me.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
All right, fair ball. Fair ball is a batted ball. It settles on fair ground. It's touched in fair territory. It bounds fair past first base or third base on or over fair territory. So that means it's bounced in front of the bag first. That means bounding it in flight over the bag, and then hitting foul territory is a foul ball. If it touches an umpire or player while fair, it's a fair ball. And in flight, fair, out of the playing field. That means a home run. And the position of the ball is what matters on a fair ball. It's not the position of the player, it's the position of the ball relative to that line. Now, a foul ball is a batted ball that it settles on foul territory between home and first base, or between home and third base. When I mean settle, I mean it stopped moving. It's slowing down. Well, it could still hit a rock and ricochet over into fair territory. So don't call it foul too early. If it bounced past first or third base on or over foul territory, that's going to be a foul ball. If it first falls on foul territory beyond first or third base, that's going to be a foul ball. You probably have seen some of the arcs that some of these balls have off of the bat, where they're over fair territory, and now they're foul, and they first land in foul territory beyond a bag. That's a foul ball. If it's touched on or over foul territory, that makes it a foul ball. If it touches any object foreign to the natural field, that's going to be a foul ball as well. So things like the screens and dugout gate doors, those kinds of things are, or trees that overhang the field. Those are going to be foreign to the natural ground. Once again, it's the position of the ball that determines fair and foul. So our picture on the left shows a good example where the left foot of the player is in foul territory, but we're looking down the first base line here, and he's catching that ball completely in fair territory. On the right-hand side, the player is completely in fair territory, and he's caught the ball in foul territory. Now, if that's a ball in flight, then we're going to have an out on that. But if it's a bounding ball, then that is going to be that's going to be a foul ball. All right, some fair foul calls to make. Get ready to vote. Once again, play in your mind. All right, first one.
See Outlier way ahead.
All right, ground ball. Go ahead. Fair foul. What do we got?
So. All right, getting some good participation on this one.
Good, good. Yeah, people are
Good
reading this
quick.
one as a foul ball, it looks like to me here. So, yeah, we've got most people have identified that as a foul ball. Yeah, that was a ball that was bounding in foul territory past the bag. And so once it gets past the bag, it has no opportunity to come back into fair territory. That's a foul ball. Good job. All right, next one. I couldn't find this clip 2 seconds earlier in the at bat, so he's already swung. The red circle is the ball. It's on the ground, and so looks like it's landed in the batter's box. So that's the start of our video. Let's see what we got here. We'll unpack that one a little bit. It was started in foul territory and started rolling up the line, rolling towards the line, and is partially over the line and is getting touched by the glove. A bit of a tougher one here.
Yeah, and remember that even though it's called the foul line, it's in fair territory. All right, just a couple more people voting, and here's the results.
All right, we almost got a dead heat on this. So any part of the ball over any part of the line, makes it a fair ball. And the pitcher is touching that ball, and that even if at that point it then moved into foul territory, that's going to be a fair ball because it is over fair territory when it is even partially over that line. The conclusion that the bases were actually loaded on this play, and the pitcher did not field it cleanly, and it rolled all the way over towards the dugout. All three runners that were on base scored on that play. It was a live ball play. So that's going to be a fair ball. So the status of the ball relative to the line. So over the line is going to be a fair ball.
And that plate umpire is going to point it fair, and he's not going to say anything because the mechanic for a fair ball is just to point toward fair territory.
Yeah, yeah. And he does that like 1 second later, but I clipped it right there. I didn't want to give away the answer. All right, we got one more. This is a really tough one. So let's assume that the ball has hit his foot. The batter's in the batter's box. It hit his foot and then goes into fair territory. Do we have fair or foul? Yeah, good participation on this one too. All right. Yeah, the majority of people see this, off of the body is a foul ball, even if the ball winds up in fair territory. Once again, the batter's it's he's foreign to the natural ground, and so that is going to be a foul ball.
All right, good job on those fair foul calls. So we're gonna
Oh yeah.
another note here.
Yeah, just one last note. Once again, we're a team, and so the plate umpire may not see that ball off of the batter's body, in which case the base umpire should come up loud and call foul if they've seen that.
And that's another thing you can pregame with your partner. You can tell your base umpire, you see it clearly off the foot or off the leg. Just come up strong and take it if I don't see it. That's just a way to work together. All right. We're talking about catch, no catch. And then in a moment, we'll talk about tags. So the definition of a catch, it needs to be an in-flight batted ball in this situation for an out to happen. You need to demonstrate secure possession of the ball in the hand or glove. You need to hold it long enough to prove complete control of the ball. And the release of the ball is voluntary and intentional. So if you have 1 and 2, but then you hit another player and the ball comes out, that's not voluntary or intentional release. And so it's one of the great moments in all of the history of baseball is that's Willie Mays making that over-the-shoulder catch. Pretty awesome for his history buffs. So it's not a catch if, like I just said, there's you get the ball and the ball drops to the ground because you collide with another player, you collide with a wall, you fall down, and the ball comes out. That is not a catch because of the voluntary release. Now, if a defensive player touches a fly ball, then the ball hits a member of the offensive team or an umpire, then the ball is caught by another defensive player. That ball is no longer in flight once it hits an offensive player or an umpire, or if it were to hit the fence or the backstop. Those are things that cause it to no longer be in flight. Now, if it pops out of your glove but doesn't hit anything and then is caught by yourself or another defensive player, that can still be a catch. So, gonna get ready to vote on this one. Is it a catch or not?
In. Towards center field, dropping. Good catch.
Let's watch it again. All right. Time to vote. Here it comes. All right, a few more people voting. Get in there, get on it. All right, I'm gonna end the poll, share the results. Here we got a 64% saying it is a catch and 36 saying not a catch. It's umpire judgment on this. It's not necessarily clear cut, but if you felt that this the ball came out on the transfer when the player was reaching in to grab it to make a throw, you still have a catch because that would be a voluntary release. But if it's just rattling around in there and him reaching in didn't have any impact on that, then you would say it was not a catch. And you're the umpire. You're the one that has to make that decision in that situation. But I probably would agree with 64% of you that that was a catch and that he just didn't get a good grip on that ball and it came out.
Yeah, good indicators usually if the throwing hand is going into the glove, that's they may come out, may not have a good grip of the ball, but if the hand is in the glove, that's usually a good indicator that they've completed the catch.
Yeah. Now, if that ball had come out while that player was still down on the ground, while he was just kind of gathering himself, I would have a dropped ball. I would have not called that a catch. But it gets a little gray. All right, we're going to talk about dead ball area. And this is anything outside of the field, the physical boundaries. So outside the fence, some of our fields don't have side fences or even home run fences. So there might be a rope or a chalk line or line of cones that demarcate that. The stands where people are watching, the dugouts, the benches. And if you're in a game where there's media coverage, there can be out of play areas that are for cameras and other things. Those would be considered out of play areas, but that would all be covered during the ground rules of your plate meeting. And so this is where those ground rules are very important. If a ball flies over a certain area and then bounds back onto the field, is that going to be out of play or not? You need to have a clear understanding of that before the game starts. A ball that gets lodged in a fence, a backstop, the umpire's equipment, the catcher's equipment, those are dead balls. And, a ball that gets kind of tangled up in that backstop or goes, into the ivy at Wrigley Field, those are examples of balls entering a dead ball area. And so then if, let's say, a outfielder catches the ball in live ball territory and carries it into dead ball territory, or the catcher goes and catches the ball in live ball territory, but then falls into the dugout or goes over a fence, then you're going to have a one base award for anybody that is on base, but you can still have an out if that catch is made in live ball territory. So important to know where that is. Okay, and then we're looking at the definition of a tag, another important thing. We have force plays, but we have a lot of tag plays. A fielder touching a base with the body while holding the ball securely, firmly in the hand or glove. So for like a force play, you don't have to touch the base with your foot. Any part of your body while you have firm and secure possession of the ball will qualify for touching that base. And then tagging a runner, you have to have the ball securely and firmly in your hand or your glove, and the hand or glove touching the runner must be the one holding the ball. You probably have seen times when somebody will make a tag with an empty glove, the ball's in their other hand. That is not a legal tag. So that one doesn't work. So if you're catching a thrown ball, this is an important distinction. Intentional voluntary release of the ball is not a requirement. So for instance, on a play at first, that ball is there, it gets caught, and the player runs through, you have beat the base runner to first base, and then later they drop the ball after holding it long enough. That doesn't have to be a voluntary release. Somebody gets run over by the base runner and the ball comes out. They had the ball, the force was in effect. That is a thrown ball. It's a different requirement than the requirement for a catch on a batted ball. It's an important note there. All right, we're going to have a poll here. And is the ball caught on a tag play? And let's watch this through. You make the determination. Was this a catch or not?
On a room over the heads of the infielders. This one to short. Come home with a force making field. Did he drop the ball?
All right, so the umpire calls him safe because the ball came out. But let's see what's happening here. Remember, it does not require voluntary release. So here are the two choices. Runner's safe, catcher did not voluntarily remove the ball from his glove. Runner's out, catcher had control of the ball while touching the plate. Make your choice. It all happened really fast, so that's another part of it here. Also a tough call to sell if people see that ball come out. All right, I'm going to end the poll. 80% of people have voted, and A came out a little bit ahead, but it was very close. People were looking at that. And in my opinion, whichever way the umpire goes, he can defend his call on that. But I think because it's a thrown ball, that he qualified for a force on that before the ball came out. So I would have said B. but I can also understand that call, and that's what the very experienced umpire called in that situation. All right, we're going to move on. Infield fly rule is our next category.
I'm getting there. Hold on.
I know. You know, there's no clock.
There we go. There we go.
Oh, yeah. Here's another little note before we get to infield fly rule. Is that ball caught?
No.
No, it's not held securely in the hand or glove. It is, however, still in flight. Hasn't hit the ground, hasn't hit a foreign object or an offensive player or an umpire. So he can reach up there with his hand or glove and put it there, and it would become a catch at that point. But just being under your arm, between your legs, on the crook of your neck, that is not a catch. Requires your hands. All right. Infield fly. The reason we have the infield fly rule is to prevent the defense from getting a cheap double play. It's meant to protect the offense in this situation. However, in minors, coaches will get it because it's a way of actually getting an out if their players don't catch the ball. So it cannot be a line drive. It cannot be a bunt, as we said earlier. It has to be a fair fly ball. There have to be less than 2 outs, and we have to have runners at first and second, or runners at first, second, and third. It needs to be able to be caught by an infielder with ordinary effort. And that changes by divisions. So for a minor player, ordinary effort might be 1 or 2 steps. For a intermediate, junior, senior player, it could be several steps, but you're kind of looking to see, are they kind of under it, ready to make the catch? And you need to call it at its apex. Then you would say infield fly, batter is out, and the ball is live. The force is removed because the batter runner is out. The runners may advance at their own risk or not. More information to come. Or, well, Jim, do we have notes on some of the other parts of the infield fly? Or just
No, that's it. That's it.
Okay, so if the ball is caught, those base runners do need to tag up just as they would on any other infield fly or any other fly ball. If the ball is foul, it cannot be an infield fly. So if a ball is missed, doesn't hit anybody, and ends up rolling foul, it's just going to be a foul ball. So if it's near the line, you can say infield fly if fair, and that would put it out there. So it's important to make that call loudly. If your partner calls infield fly, even if you don't agree with it, you echo that call so that those base runners know whether or not they need to run. Because if you don't have an infield fly and that ball drops, the force is in play and they need to make it to that next base. All right. So what happens is the batter is out and the runners don't need to advance. Here is a situation.
He officially is back to Herrera, and he popped it up. David Wright coming in to call. Infield fly rule and both batters out. Oh, and he remains at the net with the runner on first base is trapped. A player who didn't know the infield fly rule, and it'll be a double play if the Mets can execute the rundown. Oh, yeah, that's it.
All right. So in that situation, we had an infield fly and the runner wasn't forced to advance, but he got hung up because he thought he did. He didn't pay attention to the fact that the force was removed. He could have stayed at first and been fine. So it's up for us to call it loudly, but it's also on the coaches to have taught their players about that situation. Here's another situation. It should not be called on a line drive.
Off the end of his back, caught, and both runners back to the bag.
And the reason for that is that's going to happen pretty fast. It's not going to be one where they have a chance to make a choice. So, you know, it wasn't a flat line drive, it was just a little looper, but it wasn't really high enough for the defender to be kind of under it to make a fly ball catch with ordinary effort.
All right, so the Little League rulebook allows for local league options. One is the continuous batting order or traditional bat 9 batting order. Once again, in minors, continuous batting order is required, but this is for majors and above. Local leagues can choose to adopt a continuous batting order as a matter of course. We talked about the mercy rule, the 15 runs after 3 and 10 runs after 4 and 8 after 5. Add 1 inning to those for the intermediate, junior, senior. Leagues may choose not to adopt those. I don't think any of our leagues in our district have chosen that. I hope they never do. There's a good reason to have those there. But a league may choose to not adopt the mercy rule. The batter must remain in the box with at least 1 foot throughout the at bat. There's a list of exceptions in the rule book, such as inside pitch or a swing. It's a long list, but that's in the rule book. The league can choose to adopt that, even if a league has. I'm not sure because I umpire many leagues. I still enforce it in my games. I want the batters to stay in the box and not to be walking 3 or 4 steps out of the box and eating up a bunch of time. Umpires should be aware of pace of play and to try to keep the batters in the box.
And that rule is enforced or supposed to be enforced in all-star play.
Yes. And another league option is the uncaught third strike is not an out in majors. Yeah. Those are the local league options. And with that, that's the last bit of content that we have for tonight. So we got, in summary, our new rules. Hey, they're none for 2024. But we did a quick review of the 2023 changes. We looked at equipment requirements, what a pitch is, and pitcher regulations, batting, including the continuous batting order, what's a legal position in the batter's box, and well, we didn't talk about thrown bats, but I'll give you there is nothing in the rule book about a thrown bat. But that's a good chance for the umpire to talk to the coach and the player about the throwing of the bat and to have them amend that before their next at bat. Ball strike, foul ball, foul tip, and intentional walk. We walked through definitions and examples of those. Same with bunt, fair ball, and foul ball. We talked about the catch and no catch and infield fly rule. Finally, local league options. Now, tomorrow, same time, same place, we'll talk about a whole bunch of other stuff. Runners, including what the baseline is, and runners interference and runners leaving early, unique rule for Little League Baseball. Base awards for balls thrown out of play, interference. There are a number of different ways that interference can be called. There's obstruction, there's 2 different types, an A and a B, sliding or attempt to go around, appeals, and some tips and tricks on game management. So that's our content for tomorrow night. With that, Mark, I'll let you go ahead and sign us off here.
Yeah, so I would invite you to come back tomorrow night. It'll be the same Zoom link, and hope that you're there. If you miss any of this, we're going to post the videos onto YouTube, and we'll have links on the District 44 website, which is cad44.org, or check with your local league. They should be able to get you in contact with it. Appreciate you hanging with us. We went just a little bit long, 4 minutes over our time, but I think we managed to do okay. We're going to stop sharing screen so we can put up pictures. If people want to unmute and ask a question, this would be the time to do it. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow night, but Jim and I will stay on. If anybody wants to ask a question. But thank you for tuning in.
Excuse me, I had a question.
Yes, Josiah.
So it's about a pinch runner. So,
Okay.
like if someone gets hit and they like don't feel like they can run anymore, can they have a pinch runner?
So here's where it is. The only time somebody can be replaced on the bases with continuous batting order game, I'm assuming that, is if they are quote unquote injured and not able to continue. If somebody just like, oh, I don't feel like running, they're supposed to be the one running. However, if a player is injured, they can sit out, and then the person who made the last out would be put on in their place. And then if that person becomes no longer injured later on, they can come back into the game. So there is a way around it. If somebody really is hurt and doesn't feel like running, you can do that, but you have to call it an injury. You also have to make sure that is not gamesmanship by the coach of saying, oh, my slowest player has been hurt and I want to put, the speed demon on base instead of him. So it's, the umpire, if you would have to use your judgment to say, I think this person can run, or if this person really is hurt, then you would have to call it an injury and they would have to be out of the game, but they can still come back in the game if they're deemed to no longer be injured. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
I see Janice has her hand up. So Janice, did you want to ask something?
Yeah. From what I understand, Double A does not have umpires.
Double A.
Is that correct?
I think that's up to each league as to how they have umpires for their Double A. Triple A is oftentimes referred to as minors, and then majors as majors. So sometimes leagues will have coaches as the umpires, or maybe they have some youth umpires that actually umpire. It's different by different leagues. So you probably want to ask your league what they've done for umpires for Double A.
Okay, I ask because we have a game Saturday and I'm going to be the first base coach. So I'm not quite clear on what my role is going to be in terms of umpiring or coaching at this point.
Are you going to be a coach or an umpire?
And that's, well, I'm not sure at this point. I thought I was going to be a coach.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a good
But
question
I'm
to
not
ask.
trained
And
enough to be an umpire.
so
You might-
Janice, just reach out to the manager of your child's team, or reach out to somebody on the board to ask that question. There's probably a division director for minors or for Double A, and they should be able to answer that question. But it is league by league how they handle their umpiring.
Yeah, I did ask for clarification via the chat on our website, but haven't heard. So thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
if anybody on the call still is going to umpire Double A, you probably want to get a copy of the local league rules as well, because oftentimes there's the freeze line that's halfway between the bags, and so there's some nuances to the Double A game that don't come into play with minors and majors.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Well, we'll look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow night. And thank you for your patience, your interest, and we'll see you out on the field. But first, we'll see you tomorrow night. So thanks to Jim Malaris, thanks to me, and for being here. We'll to be continued. Right.
Yes.
Thank you,
All right.
everybody. Good night.